Remember when gas prices hit $5 a gallon and everyone blamed the president? Turns out the real story was happening 7,000 miles away in a desert kingdom where aging princes were making decisions that would empty your wallet before you even knew their names. Last Tuesday, a truck driver in Nebraska calculated that his fuel costs had doubled in 6 months, eating up profits that kept his family afloat. That same Tuesday, officials in Riyadh were debating production cuts that would make his situation even worse. He had no idea that his livelihood depended on conversations happening in palaces he'd never see, involving countries he couldn't locate on a map. But here's what makes this moment different from previous oil crises. America is caught between two Middle Eastern powers that each hold pieces of the global energy puzzle, and both are using those pieces as weapons in a proxy war that's reshaping world politics. Saudi Arabia controls the taps, Iran controls the choke points. And America is discovering that decades of energy policy haven't prepared us for what happens when both countries decide to weaponize oil at the same time. Welcome to Crisis Zone. Today we're tracing the line from Middle Eastern boardrooms to American gas pumps and asking whether you're ready for what comes next. Saudi Arabia was supposed to be the reliable partner. For 70 years, the deal seemed simple. America provides security, Saudi Arabia provides oil at reasonable prices. But that relationship is breaking down in ways that most Americans don't understand until they feel it at the pump. According to OPEC production data, Saudi Arabia has been deliberately cutting oil production even when global demand increases. They're not doing this because they lack capacity, they're doing it because higher oil prices serve their economic interests better than American energy security. Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman is betting that America needs Saudi oil more than Saudi Arabia needs American protection. According to energy industry analyses, he's probably right. Despite all the talk about American energy independence, the U.S. still imports about 6 million barrels of oil daily, and Saudi Arabia remains one of the largest suppliers. But the Saudis are also hedging their bets in ways that should worry every American family. They've been strengthening ties with China, accepting Chinese yuan for oil payments, and exploring security partnerships that don't depend on Washington's approval. According to diplomatic reporting, Saudi officials now openly question whether America has the will or capability to protect them from regional threats. The chaotic withdrawal from Afghanistan convinced many Middle Eastern leaders that American security guarantees aren't worth what they used to be. Iran is exploiting this uncertainty by demonstrating that it can threaten Saudi oil infrastructure regardless of American military presence. According to intelligence assessments, Iranian-backed groups have launched drone attacks on Saudi facilities, showing that even the world's most advanced air defenses can't guarantee energy security. The result is a three-way relationship where nobody trusts anybody, but everyone needs something the others control. America needs Saudi oil and Iranian restraint. Saudi Arabia needs American weapons and Iranian weakness. Iran needs higher oil prices and American distraction. When trust breaks down between countries that control global energy supplies, the consequences don't stay in diplomatic cables, they show up in your monthly budget. Here's the mini recap. America's traditional alliance with Saudi Arabia is fracturing while Iran's ability to disrupt energy markets is growing, creating instability that affects global oil prices and American energy costs. Look at a map of global energy flows and you'll understand why Middle Eastern conflicts affect American families. About 21% of the world's petroleum passes through the Strait of Hormuz, a narrow waterway between Iran and the Arabian Peninsula that's only 21 miles wide at its narrowest point. Iran has repeatedly threatened to close this strait during conflicts with the United States or Saudi Arabia. According to naval warfare experts, they have the military capability to make good on these threats, at least temporarily. Mines, small boats, and shore-based missiles could shut down tanker traffic for days or weeks. But Iran doesn't need to actually close the strait to affect oil prices. Just threatening to close it drives up shipping insurance rates and creates market volatility that adds dollars to every gallon of gas. According to energy market analyses, Iranian threats alone can increase global oil prices by 10 to 15% within hours. The Suez Canal presents another vulnerability. According to shipping industry data, about 12% of global trade passes through this Egyptian-controlled waterway, including significant oil shipments from the Middle East to Europe and America. Political instability in Egypt or conflicts that affect canal operations ripple through global energy markets immediately. Pipeline networks create additional pressure points that Iran and its proxies can target. According to infrastructure security studies, several major oil pipelines run through territories controlled by groups aligned with Iran, giving Tehran multiple options for disrupting energy flows without direct military confrontation. Saudi Arabia has tried to reduce these vulnerabilities by building alternative export routes, but geography limits their options. Most Saudi oil still must pass through waters that Iran can threaten or regions where Iranian proxies operate. The economics of chokepoint control are brutal. Countries that can disrupt energy flows gain leverage far beyond their military or economic power. Iran understands this and has built an entire regional strategy around threatening energy infrastructure. For American families, this geography lesson translates into price volatility that no domestic energy policy can completely control. When conflicts flare in the Middle East, gas prices jump regardless of how much oil America produces domestically. Here's the mini recap: critical shipping routes and pipeline networks that global energy supplies depend on pass through territories that Iran can threaten, giving Tehran disproportionate influence over world oil prices and American energy costs. The Pentagon faces an impossible puzzle in the Middle East: how to maintain energy security while managing relationships with countries that increasingly work against American interests. According to Defense Department deployments, America maintains approximately 60,000 military personnel across the Middle East, mostly to protect energy infrastructure and shipping routes. But these forces are stretched thin and vulnerable to asymmetric attacks that Iran has perfected over decades. The costs are staggering. According to military budget analyses, protecting Middle Eastern energy supplies costs American taxpayers roughly $80 billion annually through military deployments, weapons sales, and intelligence operations. That's over $600 per American household every year just to keep oil flowing. But withdrawal isn't a simple option either. According to strategic analyses, reducing American military presence would likely trigger regional conflicts that could drive oil prices even higher. Saudi Arabia and Iran might engage in direct confrontation without American deterrence, shutting down energy production across multiple countries. The weapons sales dimension creates additional complications. America sells advanced military equipment to Saudi Arabia to maintain influence, but these same weapons could be used in regional conflicts that disrupt energy markets. According to arms trade data, Saudi Arabia is now one of the world's largest weapons importers, mostly from American companies. Iran responds to American military presence and weapons sales by developing asymmetric capabilities designed to neutralize conventional advantages. According to intelligence assessments, Iran has invested heavily in drones, missiles, and proxy networks that can strike energy infrastructure throughout the region. This creates an arms race where American attempts to protect energy supplies encourage Iranian capabilities that threaten those same supplies. More American weapons in the region leads to more Iranian countermeasures, which increases overall instability. The domestic political pressure complicates military planning further. According to polling data, most Americans oppose large-scale military operations in the Middle East, but they also oppose higher gas prices. Politicians must balance energy costs against military costs without clear public guidance about acceptable trade-offs. Here's the mini recap. America spends billions annually on Middle Eastern military deployments that may increase rather than decrease regional instability, creating domestic political pressure and strategic contradictions without clear solutions. The 1973 oil embargo taught America what happens when Middle Eastern countries use energy as a political weapon. But today's energy warfare is more sophisticated and potentially more devastating than anything we experienced 50 years ago. Saudi Arabia has learned to manipulate oil markets without declaring embargoes that trigger immediate American military responses. According to market analysis, they can achieve the same economic pressure through production scheduling and investment decisions that appear commercial but serve political purposes. Recent production cuts by Saudi Arabia and other OPEC members removed about 2 million barrels per day from global markets, according to energy industry data. This decision came despite American diplomatic pressure and contributed to gas price increases that affected millions of American families. Iran uses different tactics but achieves similar results. According to intelligence reporting, Iranian proxies have attacked energy infrastructure in Saudi Arabia, Iraq, and the UAE, creating supply disruptions that drive up global prices even when American energy production increases. The timing of these attacks isn't coincidental. Iran typically escalates energy-related pressure when America implements sanctions or supports policies that Iran opposes. Energy markets become diplomatic battlegrounds where Middle Eastern conflicts play out through American gas prices. Cyber warfare adds new dimensions to energy weapons. According to cybersecurity assessments, both Iranian and Saudi-linked hackers have targeted American energy infrastructure, testing capabilities they could use during escalated conflicts. The global financial system amplifies these energy weapons. According to economic studies, oil price spikes trigger inflation that affects every sector of the American economy, not just transportation. Food costs, manufacturing expenses, and shipping rates all increase when energy prices rise. This calculation may be correct, but it creates instability that could spiral beyond anyone's control. Energy warfare that starts as diplomatic pressure could escalate into actual warfare if economic damage becomes severe enough to force military responses. Here's the mini recap. Saudi Arabia and Iran both use sophisticated energy warfare tactics against American interests, calculating that America lacks the will to respond militarily to economic attacks that cost American families billions of dollars. These geopolitical chess moves aren't abstract strategy games, they're reshaping how American families live, work, and plan for the future in ways that most people don't connect to Middle Eastern politics. Transportation costs hit working families hardest. According to Bureau of Labor Statistics data, lower-income households spend a larger percentage of their income on gasoline, meaning Middle Eastern energy politics disproportionately affect Americans who can least afford higher costs. A construction worker in Arizona told me his commute now costs $100 more per month than it did last year, money that came directly out of his family's grocery budget. He doesn't follow international news, but Iranian threats and Saudi production cuts are determining whether his kids get name-brand cereal or generic alternatives. Small businesses face different but equally serious pressures. According to small business surveys, delivery companies, landscaping services, and other transportation-dependent businesses are struggling to maintain profitability when fuel costs fluctuate unpredictably based on Middle Eastern political developments. Food prices reflect energy costs throughout the supply chain. According to agricultural economics data, higher diesel fuel costs increase farming expenses, trucking costs, and processing facility operations. A single oil price spike ripples through grocery stores within weeks, affecting everything from bread to fresh produce. Airlines pass fuel cost increases directly to passengers through higher ticket prices and additional fees. According to aviation industry data, a $10 increase in oil prices typically translates to $50 to $100 higher round-trip ticket costs, making family travel and business trips more expensive. Heating and cooling costs fluctuate with oil prices even in areas that don't use oil for electricity generation. According to energy market studies, oil, natural gas, and electricity prices correlate strongly, meaning Middle Eastern conflicts affect utility bills across America regardless of local energy sources. What's your experience been? Have you noticed changes in your monthly expenses that you can trace back to gas prices, and how has that affected other spending decisions your family makes? Here's the mini recap. Middle Eastern energy politics directly affect American transportation costs. Small business operations, food prices, travel expenses, utility bills, and family financial planning in ways that create both immediate hardship and long-term uncertainty. The reality is that individual families can't control Middle Eastern politics or global oil markets, but they can control how well they prepare for continued energy price volatility that shows no signs of decreasing. Transportation efficiency becomes essential when fuel costs fluctuate unpredictably. According to automotive efficiency studies, vehicle maintenance, route planning, and driving habits can reduce fuel consumption by 20 to 30% without requiring new car purchases that strain family budgets. Energy diversification helps insulate households from oil market volatility. According to energy usage analyses, families that reduce dependence on petroleum-based transportation and heating create financial buffers against Middle Eastern political developments. Budget flexibility allows families to absorb energy price shocks without reducing other essential expenses. According to financial planning research, maintaining emergency funds specifically for transportation and utility cost increases prevents families from going into debt during energy crises. Local resource development reduces dependence on global energy markets. Supporting local food production, renewable energy projects, and community transportation options creates alternatives when international energy supplies become expensive or unreliable. The most important preparation may be understanding the connections between distant events and daily expenses. Families who monitor Middle Eastern developments and anticipate energy price changes can make proactive decisions rather than reactive adjustments. Community cooperation multiplies individual preparation efforts. Neighborhoods that coordinate carpooling, share transportation costs, and develop mutual support networks maintain better financial stability during energy price volatility. Share your thoughts. What strategies has your family developed for managing energy cost increases, and which approaches have worked best for maintaining your budget during price spikes? Here's the mini recap. Individual energy security requires transportation efficiency, energy diversification, budget flexibility, local resource development, geopolitical awareness, and community cooperation that function independently of Middle Eastern political stability. The triangle of American energy needs, Saudi oil control, and Iranian disruption capabilities has created a system where Middle Eastern political decisions directly affect American family budgets in ways that domestic energy policy can't completely control. This isn't a temporary crisis that diplomatic solutions can resolve quickly. The underlying tensions between America, Saudi Arabia, and Iran reflect fundamental changes in global power relationships that will persist regardless of which political party controls Washington. American families can't control what happens in Riyadh or Tehran, but they can control how well they understand these connections and how thoughtfully they prepare for continued energy market volatility. Subscribe to Crisis Zone and join Americans who understand that energy security starts with understanding the global forces that determine what we pay at the pump. Let us know in the comments, how have rising energy costs affected your family's budget, and what would you want other viewers to know about managing these pressures? Because while we can't control Middle Eastern politics, we can control how wisely we prepare for the energy uncertainty they create.